Hi everybody, this is Oleg. Welcome to Oregon Preparedness. I'm in Pennsylvania now, westbound, going back to Portland. I'm going to drop load near Portland, in Hillsboro to be precise, and go home for the holidays, which is exciting and good. And right now, this weather in PA, it reminds me of PNW. Nice and wet, rains on and off. Right now it's raining, and it's very warm. It's 60 degrees, which is just unbelievable. We are in December having this weather. And so what I want to talk about today is more on the preparedness and the lessons I learned from my old country, Ukraine. That's where I'm from, and just basically being raised by Ukrainian people, my parents. I talked about it briefly before on my channel, probably about 6 months to a year ago, and I'd like to go over some things and that I went over before, and some new things. So before I had a lot less people on my channel, so I'd like to share things that are preparedness related with the new crowd that I have now. Thanks for joining, everybody, by the way, and thanks for watching. Anyway, I'll start with this. In the Ukraine, and actually anywhere in the former USSR, I would say preparedness is a way of life for most people. Few rich people and for the most part are same everywhere. They got the money, they get anything they want anytime they want. They don't think about possibilities that one day they might be in need. As for the rest of the people who are poor or medium poor or not so poor but still not rich, everybody is in prepping mode all the time. I'll give you a few examples. Of course, people in the country, most of those people, they have everything. They have a lot of people have either a cow from which they get milk, and then they make their own cheese and cottage cheese and milk, of course, and all kinds of yogurts they make. Or people have a couple of pigs that they're raising from leftovers from their table, basically. No one really buys food for them. It's just from leftovers. People have chickens, ducks, geese, all that, or turkeys, and people have their own poultry, their own eggs. And so what people buy in the store often, not everybody, but some people, they just buy things like sugar, salt, spices. Everything else, they have their own, or they get it from their fellow neighbors who are doing the same things, who are raising the livestock. Everybody have gardens, and in those gardens you'll find everything. You'll find potatoes, tomatoes, onions, garlic, zucchinis, corn, everything, sunflowers, everything you can think of, watermelons. Then everything, once it ripes, your fruits and vegetables, people in the countries, of course, they have orchard with different fruit trees, plums, apricots, cherries, apples. Then it's canning season. People can a lot. I remember every summer my mom would be canning. And even people who live in the city, like we did, A lot of people try to have some kind of land. If you live in a city in a house, usually everybody have a little garden that they grow food. If you don't have a house, you live in an apartment, often you have relatives in the country, and usually you get to use part of their yard and grow food. Or you have a little summer house, we call it dacha, and on the dacha is basically what you do is you have your garden, your orchard, so fruit trees in your garden to grow food. Plus it's a place you go on the weekends just to get away from the city. And so everybody, if you're in the city, you'll ask, okay, you live in an apartment, where do you store all your food? Of course, people that live in the houses, they have cellars. We used to live in a little house before in the city. I remember my father and I, we built cellar underground. It was like a bunker. My father was a mason. He wasn't Freemason, he was just a mason. And I remember I was helping him build it. It was built from bricks and concrete and rebar and everything. It was heavy duty bunker, but that's where we kept our food. And people who live in apartments, often they either try to have their cellar at their dachas, and or they have family or friends with a cellar that they share it with. And so most people try to have some garden. Everybody try to grow their own food. Everybody, or livestock or poultry. And so it's like it's in your blood. Everybody, whenever there is something, back in the USSR times, there was shortage of food sometimes. So whenever you go to the store, if there is something that you need, you don't buy just one or two, you buy as much as you possibly can. So everybody had pantries full of provision, months ahead. And that's how people survived. I don't think it changed much. Maybe in the cities it did right now, but in the country it's still same old way. And so even here, I will say all the ex-Soviet people, Russians, Ukrainians, whoever lives on land, whoever lives in a house, city or country, most people still grow their own gardens. Most people, Russians and Ukrainians, trees on their property. They usually don't plant the trees for decorations, trees that just bloom. Some of them do a little bit, but for the most part, those trees are fruit-bearing trees. So it doesn't take space in your yard for nothing. You gotta get something out of it. And so that's how it is. People still do gardens. I knew one family, they bought a house, and the house had a swimming pool, in-ground swimming pool. Well, guess what they did? They filled that swimming pool partially with dirt, and because it was partially under the ground, there was always a little bit warmer in there, no window or anything, and they had an amazing garden in there. I'm not telling you to turn your swimming pool into a garden. I'm just saying how ex-Soviet people, to what extent they are gardeners, that even swimming pool takes back seat, when it comes to preparedness and growing your own food. My parents, everywhere they lived, they always had gardens. They still do. And when I was younger, sometimes they asked me to help them in the garden, and I always hated it back then when I was younger. And now I'm thankful they did, because I learned a lot of things. Right now, I just moved from an apartment to a house. In that house, I can't really grow a garden, it's a rental. However, once if God's willing, I'm gonna move to my own house, I will for sure have garden. And my kids, for some time we shared the house with my parents. So when my mom always was making garden, and my kids, they always were working in the garden with her, and they just love it. Even in my old apartment, they were yearning to grow something, some food. My mom would bring them a pot with a tomato plant, and they would be watering that plant and get excited when they see little tomatoes growing and ripen and then eat them. So for which I'm happy. I hope they'll never change. I hope they'll keep growing and stay that way. Anyway, the moral to the story: if you have an opportunity to grow your own food, or to have your own chickens or ducks or whatever your heart desires, whatever you can put on your land, on your piece of property, I would encourage you to do so, because harder times are on the horizon. Famine is probably gonna take place to some degree, to some extent, and you need to be ready for. Nobody wants to be hungry. In this country, people don't really know what hunger is. You look at Africa, people have suffered for generations. In Ukraine in 1931, there was artificial famine called Holodomor. Look it up. It's not a joke. Between 10 and 20 million of Ukrainians, by different estimation, died from hunger. Cannibalism was taking place. So it's a serious thing. So I encourage every one of you to fill up your pantries, get more prepared, get freeze-dry food, long shelf life food, and get into gardening, get into growing your own fruit, and so on and so forth. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm gonna conclude this video. It went on already longer than usual. Share this video if you find it useful, and we'll see you in the next upload. Take care.